Today, let's look at which is more credible about the different claims of the science of evolution and the Bible. The theory of natural occurrence and evolution of life is that all plants and animals originally came from one cell. Can life really occur naturally? Scholars who believe in evolution have made great efforts to prove the natural occurrence of life. Miller and several scholars succeeded in making several amino acids by mixing methane, ammonia, hydrogen, and water and applying an electrical simulation. They announced that this is the most convincing evidence for spontaneous generation of life. Because of this experiment, many people denied the existence of God as the creator of life. However, this is a fallacy because the experiment was tested under a different condition from the Earth's early atmosphere. It's also far from being complete to do an experiment with some of the components of amino acids. Just because some amino acids are made, does that prove that the birth of life? It is a real mystery apart from science, that the first life arises. This is simply because life doesn't happen in all the experiments that have prepared with suitable conditions for life to occur. If we conclude that the creation of a few amino acids is the evidence of life, it is like claiming that pigeons flying is the evidence that they can fly over the atmosphere into outer space after many years. It is not the role of science to bring the impossible into the category of possibilities with a single word of a long time. I don't think it's scientific to assert that amino acids contain life. Let's take a look at how one cell lives and multiplies. The cell's vital activity can be attributed to various proteins in a cell. When many proteins play their roles well, smooth life activities occur. These proteins are a collection of at least 100 to 300 amino acids in order, and they are bent back and forth to form a ball or other special shape to have additional functions. These proteins are so complex and so sophisticated in structure that they cannot be made on their own. Every complex, regular, and repetitive thing requires a blueprint to build. Inside the cell, DNA is the collection of these blueprints. This DNA has a twisted shape, with the opposite arm holding the arm with information tightly as if folded arms. So the information in the DNA is stored securely and will not leak or be destroyed. If a new protein is needed, the protein responsible for the synthesis goes to the DNA and asks for the blueprint for the new protein. Then, the DNA unwinds the double helix loop only in the part containing the blueprint of the protein and tells it to read the information. Then RNA comes in and copies the blueprint to make mRNA. The mRNA containing the blueprint leaves the nucleus and travels to the protein factory, the ribosome. The ribosome looks at the blueprint brought by the mRNA, and with the help of the tRNA, it joins hundreds of amino acids in sequence without making a single mistake. These amino acid stems are then folded into specific shapes to form proteins with different functions. These synthesized proteins each have an address tag where they need to go. So they move through various systems to their final destination. In this way, more than 20,000 types of proteins are made and broken down in human cells every day. The blueprints of these various proteins are kept in the DNA warehouse. The synthesis of these proteins operates like a very well controlled, delicate machine. If any one of the above steps goes wrong, protein production will fail. When linking hundreds of amino acids, if just one wrong addition is made, normal protein synthesis is not possible. If one step fails repeatedly, you have a serious illness. Without our knowledge, very sophisticated processes of synthesis, migration, decomposition, recycling, and so on are constantly going very perfectly within the cell of our bodies. It is impossible without a designer to have a device that works this fine and dense in extremely small cells. Is it possible for everything to work together for a particular purpose even though cells are not intelligent? Is it reasonable and scientific to believe this? Isn't this enough to make you tremble at the wisdom of God who designed it? Now, scientists are making information storage devices by mimicking DNA. Also, in order for a cell to survive and reproduce, not only DNA, but also a nucleus, cytoplasm, mitochondria, ribosomes, photosynthetic apparatus, and many other structures are required. Each of them performs complex functions in a complex structure. Some would argue that the first primitive cells did not have to be so complex, but even a very simple cell cannot work with just a few amino acids. Even the simplest cell on Earth needs at least 600 different proteins. A complex structure like a computer has to be built by someone wise. It cannot be created by itself even if hundreds of billions of years pass. But can a cell with a structure much more complex than this be created on its own? If you believe this, isn't it more blind faith than religion? Darwin published the theory of evolution based on several observations, and he believed that the evolving fossils would be found in the order he assumed. But all the fossils were discovered contrary to Darwin's expectations. In most cases, all fossils appear in full form without intermediate forms. If it's slowly changing, there should be fossils with ambiguous structures that have both animal characteristics, but none of these fossils exist. This is possible because it's not evolution but creation. According to the Bible, all animals were created perfectly in their kind from the beginning, with no intermediary steps. The absence of intermediary fossils is also the biggest concern for evolutionists. Several intermediate bones have been found between humans and chimpanzees. But why are such intermediate steps found only in humans and not in other animals? This is just the result of too much effort to prove their theory. There's also a lot of evidence of manipulation and speculation. Also, it is a big concern that fossils are not found in the order they want in each stratum. According to evolutionary theory, less evolved animals in the lower strata and more evolved animals in the upper strata should be found. But most of the strata have fossils mixed together. It is said that few fossils follow the standard strata set by evolutionists. What's even more strange is that in the Cambrian strata, 500 million years ago, when animal fossils first appeared, all animals had already appeared in fully evolved forms. According to the theory of evolution, each stratum should produce slightly different fossils depending on the evolutionary stage. But strangely, though, many animal fossils begin to emerge from the Cambrian strata all at once, without the lower strata. This is called the Cambrian explosion because it means that an explosive increase in fossils in the Cambrian. Evolutionists are very puzzled by this. Even textbooks do not record this. Another strange thing is that animals in the Cambrian strata disappeared in the middle strata and then reappeared in modern times and are living there. It's really messy. Arthropods like dragonflies and shrimp have highly developed systems with thousands of tiny eyes. They are good structures to protect themselves while observing all directions. However, well developed compound eyes have already been discovered since the Cambrian period, when fossils first appeared. Trilobites also have compound eyes. Could such a state of the art system emerge from the very beginning of life? It's like the story of a newborn baby coming out with a doctorate degree. Cutting edge design can only come from the wise. It makes more sense to see that God created the shrimp as a creature with perfect eyes from the beginning. Soft tissue is often still found in bones that should be fossilized. Evolutionists were stunned when the bones of a Tyrannosaurus, said to have lived 65 million years ago, were found with flesh on them. The University of North Carolina in 2003. Organic bodies can't be maintained for more than a million years. But how can bones that are tens of million years old still exist? And how can flesh remain attached to them? Evolution cannot explain it at all. It is said that there are many intermediate levels of fossils from chimpanzee to humans. So let's infer the evolutionary process. The strange things are, where are all the intermediary steps and why are there only chimpanzees and humans now? If it has evolved slowly for a long time, various human groups must still exist, evolving in many directions from apes to humans. Every time a new ape comes out, it seems too much to assume that all the previous stages are completely extinct. It is also said that it is impossible to breed with other apes. Therefore, unless males and females of the same gene occur at the same time, the newly developed mutant apes will not reproduce and will go extinct. Even if a male and female capable of mating occur at the same time by chance, they must find a partner with the same gene in the vast earth and start dating. What is the probability that these two things will happen at the same time? How likely are these things to happen dozens of times? Most mutations cause deformities, mental retardation, etc. How likely is it that mutations will continue to create superior races? This time, let's look at the stratum problem. Scholars say that there are millions of years of the difference between each layer in the stratum. But strangely enough, the strata are spread flat like a sport ground for tenths of kilometers. So there has never been rain, snow, or earthquake in millions of years. After such a long period of time, the land must naturally undergo many changes and occurs in the strata due to rain, flood, and wind erosion. If it has been built up for a long time, a flat strata can never be formed. Therefore, the same stratum must be quite very bumpy. But on the other hand, the Grand Canyon and other strata are too flat. Also, each stratum has its own characteristic color and contains only the same sediment. Therefore, each layer is homogeneous, and there are many places where color is very fine and beautiful, as if painted with paint. How can it be that the same sediment of the same color accumulates for millions of years? And after millions of years, another sediment of the same color accumulates over and over again. This is absolutely impossible and proof that evolutionists' theory of strata is 100% wrong. In the midst of all this confusion, let us now open the Bible. The Bible explains at once all the contradictions that evolution cannot explain. The Bible says that God made all the animals perfect from the beginning, 6,000 years ago. And God judged humans who became too evil all at once with a flood. At this time, many animals were buried in soil due to the floods and tsunamis, and they were fossilized. The Cambrian fossils may have been the first to be buried in the deep layers of the sea or river. Therefore, it comes from the bottom fossil. And in other layers, other fossils are found. These are not hundreds of millions of years apart. They are all animals that live in the same era, and they are buried in different places. So most of them live together now, except for extinct animals, whether they were in the Cambrian or other strata. There's also a lot of evidence that dinosaurs lived with humans. In the Paluxy River, Texas, dinosaur raptors and human footprints remain fossils in one place. Dinosaur murals are found in old caves that have never been touched by humans. Wouldn't it have been possible to draw it on the mural since they saw it personally? Built in the 12th century on a wall of the temple of Angkor Wat is a sculpture that resembles the dinosaur Stegosaurus. This too could have been made because people at that time saw it firsthand. The discovery of protein tissue in the bones of Tyrannosaurus could mean that dinosaur lived within thousands of years rather than 65 million years. The flatness of the strata means that they can never occur in many years and have occurred in a short period of time. There is a certain evidence for this. In 1980, a volcanic eruption on Mount St. Helens in the US wiped out lakes and valleys by a huge amount of melted snow, water, and soil near the top of the mountain. However, in a few hours, a small but the same shaped stratum was formed as the Grand Canyon. This is not a theory, but a real thing, which is a significant blow to the evolutionist argument that this kind of stratum takes hundreds of millions of years. Also in 1994, Colorado State University conducted an experiment which sediment was drained with water, and it was confirmed that several flat stratas were formed at this time, When a large amount of soil comes with water, particles of the same size are gathered together to form several layers. This is called turbidity current. Recently, the theory that the formation of strata was not due to the sedimentation but due to turbidity current is gradually gaining popularity. According to this theory, the formation of the Grand Canyon came after the strata, which were submerged during the flood, held water and soared, and a large amount of water was trapped in the highlands. After that, the mountain suddenly collapsed and a lot of turbidity current flowed, forming a canyon. No matter how long a river flows, it is difficult to understand that it has created a pit on such a scale as the Grand Canyon. Then, why are such huge canyons so rare when there are so many rivers in the other countries as well? Rather, the cataclysm theory causes by turbidity seems more likely because there is experimental evidence and practical evidence of Helen's Mountain. When there is low turbidity, strata are formed in an oblique pattern, and there are many oblique strata everywhere in the world. This is possible because of the great flood that has been around the globe. Scientists said that if you calculate the half-life of radioactive isotopes, the Earth is billions of years old. However, this is wrong result because the Earth's initial state was set at random. Science should not assume in advance that this is the truth and turn a blind eye to other evidence. You will have to listen to all the possibilities that can be explained with an open mind. The biggest problem with evolution is that before finding the evidence, they try to establish conclusions and prove only their assumptions. So, evolutionists should always be busy. They'll be busy making excuses for all the difficulties that they can't interpret because of the wrong conclusions. They see octopuses, which have lived since the Cambrian, transform themselves in an instant, even theorizing that the octopus is most likely from space. There are so many evidences against the theory of evolution, but in order to learn the Bible, to know God more, and to love God from now on, I will mainly talk about the Bible. Thank you for watching.